Cynicism is just another form of cowardice. For our sergeant are not interested in a midlife crisis. We were to do our freaking work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Spotlight Podcast, Success Stories for Veterans, where it is our job to break down and analyze Titans from both the military and civilian communities to discover their tactics, their mindset, and their systems so that you can take those and apply them to your life and ultimately to your transition. Those Titans range from New York Times bestselling authors to former heads of state to other divergent thinkers who are out there dominating their field by challenging conventional wisdom. And today we have an ultimate challenger of conventional wisdom in Rob Rens. Now, Rob Rens is now an insurance professional, but it wasn't always the case, right? He got his start in the Marines and mortuary services. And after getting out, Rob's kind of spun around on the corporate wheel for a couple of years before he ultimately landed a role in insurance sales. Now, while this role was lucrative, it really wasn't what Rob wanted. So he decided to take the leap, start his own agency, and now he's out there calling his own shots. So how did he do it? And how does he do it on a day-to-day basis? Listen and find out. All right, Rob, we're live.
All right.
So we got you on the show today. For people who are not familiar with you, give me the Robert Rens story.
Yeah. My 30 seconds to where I'm at right now. So I'm the owner and agent of Rob Rens State Farm in Wilmington, North Carolina. Marine Corps veteran. I stepped on the yellow footprints of Parris Island October 6, 2003, and stayed in the Marines until May of 2011. And immediately after my time in the Marine Corps, I got into the insurance industry in varying roles, and really started off as a producer and worked my way up to an executive level with a big global provider. And then just decided I'd had enough of the corporate wheel and risked it all, took everything we'd made, uprooted my family from Atlanta, moved to the coast, and put everything we had into being an entrepreneur and opened up our own shop under the State Farm umbrella.
So when you got out, and what you did in the Marines obviously is great, but when we're talking to people, they're really concerned about what's happening right here, right now. When you got out, tell me about like that first year outside of the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Oh man, I think every Marine feels like, or I think every service member, I shouldn't just say Marine, feels a little bit lost, and like, what am I supposed to do now? Now I had ideas. I knew that there was aspirational things that I wanted with my life. That's why I got out of the Marine Corps. I wanted a wife. I wanted to start a family. I wanted to, own property. And I had a kind of vision of myself that, I don't know why, dude. Like I wanted to wear a suit and tie. Like I thought that was the job.
Yeah.
Was to have a nice suit and tie and a slick pair of shoes. But it didn't feel like I ever really got there. Like it was more aspirational than it was execution based. And so I took the first thing that came to me. But it's funny. It's funny how things happen, I didn't mean to, I didn't ever think I would be a salesperson. Like if you'd asked me, would you be in sales? And I used to say, no, that's for people who can't get work elsewhere. And so I fell into this sales job, and I fell into an insurance sales job, and I loved it because it gave me the two most important things that I said I wanted after my time in the military. And I feel like when I talk to other vets, this is true about them. The first and most important thing to me, and it still exists to this day, at the end of every day when my head hits the pillow, I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I did something that was meaningful for somebody else. So, some people would call that an emotional paycheck. But for me, it's tied to the root of who I am. And I think that's a common thread, a red thread that veterans have between them, like just that act of service or willingness to sacrifice for other people. That's number one. And then number two is I wanted to be able to dictate how much I got paid for that, what I felt I was worth, not being told by somebody else that, you're a $50,000 a year employee and you can never make more than that. So I would say the hardest part about the transition was finding something that married those two things together.
What was it about sales that married those two things together for you when you're going through your day to day? How was that occurring?
Yeah. It wasn't the sales role. It was what we were selling that made a difference for me. So when I was in the Marines, I was my MOS was a 0491. So that's a mortuary affairs specialist. So what we did in combat, I was in Fallujah in 05, and then I was in TQ in 08. What we did is we recovered the remains of soldiers, sailors, airmen, coasties, and Marines that were killed in action. We'd inventory their effects, and we would, we've all seen, if you're a veteran, you've seen it, where we've got the transfer case with the flag folded over the top of it, walking onto the back of the C-130 to get them out of theater and to get them home, ultimately through Dover, and then home for a burial. So it was our job to recover those service members and get them home, basically, is what we did. And that MOS, that job, gave me an incredibly deep sense of purpose and a huge respect for human life.
Yeah.
And so when I got back, and again, I think everything happens for a reason. When I got back and I ran into this guy that had a sales team, that what they did was we would solicit veterans. We would market specifically to veterans. And we would talk to them about what their burial benefits are through the VA. So how do you get into a national cemetery after you're done with your service, and what is paid for by the VA? And so we would spend 45 minutes to an hour just saying, this is what you get. Here's all the forms that you need. I'm going to help you fill these forms out. Keep them in a safe deposit box. When you do pass away, give these to your funeral director, and everything will be taken care of. The one thing that isn't paid for, though, in all of that by the VA is a funeral service. So we would sell a life insurance policy that would supplement that. So I felt like, to answer your question, how did sales bring those two things together? I did somebody a service. We saved them at least $15,000 by using the VA. And I don't say we guided them towards using the benefit that they earned from their service. But we also saved them, and you and I have talked a lot about managing risk. We helped them from managing the risk of passing away and having no way to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's where the compensation side came from, and the more I did, the more I produced, the more I put myself out there, the more money I made on all that. And so that really brought those two, hemispheres, I guess, together for me.
And how long was it from the time from when you got out to you really started getting some type of, actual satisfaction from what you were doing professionally?
Mm-hmm. So I would say I got out. I was in the, we all in the IRR for a little while.
Yeah.
You're still kind of in because you don't ever know if you're going to get stop loss or whatever. And
I had a buddy who did get stop loss.
Man.
In my squadron, he was so salty about it.
Yeah, I bet he was. Yeah, you always feel like the big green weenie standing right behind you just to grab you and take you back, right? Mm-hmm. From my last deployment in 2008 up until 2009, I didn't really feel like I knew what I was doing. I went to school, I was getting my business degree and all that, and so really by the time I EAS contract over was May of 2011. So that 2-year period felt wonky to me. It didn't feel like anything was real. I was going through school and, and you know how it is, man, coming back from a deployment and you're 23, 24 and you've lived real life shit. And you're around 18, 19-year-old kids that just got out of the house and are in college and they think that getting a D on a paper is a big deal. And you're like,
I know.
Kill these kids.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen that Billy Madison meme where it's like what it feels like to use your GI Bill. And you're like, it's exactly how I felt. It doesn't feel real.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say from like 2009 to 2011 was I felt no satisfaction. I didn't feel like I was really grounded in anything. I was just trying to get an education.
Yeah.
But then when I really got that first job that meant something to me, which was, helping the vets get to the national cemetery, within a month to 2 months, I really started to feel like I was doing something that meant something, So, and after that, it didn't stop up until I got so disconnected from what my original passion and purpose was of helping people, that's when I said, I got to get back to kind of ground zero with my career and do what really means something to me, instead of just being up at the top of this corporate ladder, making decisions for people at the bottom level without, this is that huge disconnect, that huge gap. So
let's talk about that, because veterans, one, who are getting out sometimes don't realize that occurs frequently. And two, they don't know what to do about it when it is occurring. So talk to me about that gap and how it kind of erodes over time from what you started out doing.
Yeah. I think if I'm being really introspective about it, mine happened to me because I was chasing something that I thought I needed, that I thought would fill like a hole. And it was really just an idealized version of what I thought I wanted to be, So I think it boiled down to, and all that, I would say that like level job, when I achieved it, it came with some really great stuff, but the consequences of that, I think are more severe. Like my lifestyle was trash, man. Like I was living out of hotels. I've got 2 little girls, a 5-year-old and a just turned 1-year-old. And so I was living out of hotels. I was drinking way too much. My fitness wasn't where it was. I wasn't managing my stress. And it was kind of just turning into this sort of melting pot of not good stuff. Like it wasn't who I wanted to be. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, this is exactly who I want to be, because I have the suits and I have the ties and I have the job and the shoes and all that stuff. But, it just the wider it got, the more unhappy with it all I was. And so what I do now is, in the morning, every single morning, I wake up earlier than anybody else in my house. Before my feet hit the ground, I say what I'm thankful for. And I've got my wife and I've got my 2 girls. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that my name is on the front door of my building. I don't have to ask anybody for permission to do anything. So if I want to get back down to what makes me very, very happy, which is working with customers, identifying needs, protecting them from blind spots that they didn't know existed, I can do that. But if I want to, like kick around marketing strategy, I can do that. So I can kind of do it all. So I think what's important now, the lesson that I learned from all that is, don't feel like you have to go so fast chasing something that you forget to just stop and think for a second and say, what do I really want? What makes me really, really happy? Which is what I do now. And it's made a world of difference.
So we've both been in the risk world, right? And we both separately came to the same conclusion that it's too much risk to my lifestyle being involved with working for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Tell me about what you perceive, because a lot of people feel safer working for other people. Mm-hmm. They do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But discuss for me some of the risks that you see inherent with tying your destiny to the corporate ladder.
Carson, I got to throw a question back on you. Is the veteran mentality, are we ever really about safety?
No, not in my opinion.
Oh, you're 18, you're 19, you're just getting out of boot camp or whatever. You're invincible. You're on top of the world. And I don't know that we always take the time to respect that risk-taking trait. If you're willing to, I told somebody this the other day, I didn't think about exactly how I phrased it, because I thought it was so good. Because, when you say something and you're like, damn, that shit was good, I should have wrote it down.
I have so first of all, my first thing I do is I have this on me all the time.
Yeah.
Specifically for that, because I was losing stuff constantly. I was like, oh, what was that thing? And I also have a fishbowl that I started in my house, just like good random thoughts and also random punchlines for jokes
Yeah.
that nobody's ever going to hear. And I just laugh.
No.
Yeah.
But they make you laugh. One day you'll go through it and you'll be like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So your quote, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no. The point that I was making to kind of answer, what about people that want to feel the safety of a corporate job?
Yeah.
When you're in the military, when you're a veteran, what is it inside of you that says, yeah, I'll go deploy. Yes, I'll go throw myself in the way of some bullets for awful pay, mind you, and the risk of certain disaster in some form or fashion, whether it's bodily injury, whether it's death, or whether, it's a real hard time coping with those things after all of that. That exact same spirit that you had at 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever age it was that you were in the military is the exact same one that it takes to be an entrepreneur. And if you were willing to do it then, I don't think you should allow yourself to get watered down to the point where you're not capable or you're unwilling to take the exact same risk when it can benefit you so much more than the benefits that you got from going to Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever it might be. So, I channeled that inner spirit and it is, this, man, it's scary being an entrepreneur sometimes. Like, when is my next paycheck going to where's it going to come from? I've got 3 people that work for me. Are we going to make payroll every 2 weeks? Am
I irrevocably going to destroy my brand?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so much risk that goes into it. But what I love about being me, and when I say me, what I love about kind of being a veteran is that we have perspective like nobody else really has perspective. If I lost all of my money in a pursuit to make a better life for me and my wife, I'm okay with that because shit, dude, we went to war. Like, whatever. Like, there's friends of mine who didn't get that chance.
Yeah.
That are gone. I think I owe it to them to try real hard. So that's how I think about it. If you want safety, I get that. I get wanting safety, but at the same time, the brain can't hold two things in conflict. I think that's where a lot of military, the cognitive dissonance of it all is I am a risk taker. I'm a fighter. I have done great things in my life, but then I also want this minutia of a job that just pays me something, but I feel safe because I know where the paycheck's going to come from every 2 weeks. So
I was talking to somebody the other day and I was describing risk like a piece of fruit, right? The difference between whether or not it's juice or a random pile of goo is when I squeeze it, right? It's a question of timing. And there's nothing, risk is what it is. It's not good or bad. It's how and when you deal with it that it becomes a problem. So people who are dealing with, all these businesses that were not prepared for the digital world are having a hell of a time now during COVID versus businesses that were already set up for that. It's a hiccup for sure, but it's not bad.
Right.
So when you're talking about going into the entrepreneurial space and veterans are like, I'm not sure when I should do that. Should I accept a corporate job for a period of time? If so, what does that time frame look like? How would you advise somebody who's coming to you with that perspective and they're an ambitious veteran and they're just not sure?
Yeah, that's a very, very profound question because I almost did what I did in 2020. I mean, I opened our business in 2020. I almost did the exact same thing back in 2012. And if I'm being real with myself, had I done it in 2012, I probably would have failed, and I probably would have failed miserably because I just wasn't ready. There was components about corporate discipline that I needed to be able to bring to the entrepreneurial space. There's good stuff to learn at the right corporations. And there's also, I think learning what not to do is every bit as important as learning what to do.
Yeah.
And you see that all the time. I look at every opportunity. Like if I go to another entrepreneur's I'm looking at another entrepreneur and like, this is the way that they do, this is the way they do it. And that's what makes them special. And that's what makes them a good business person. But I'm like, I'm not going to do it that way because that's not how I want to do it. But I can take that and I can kind of tweak it a little bit and I can make it my own, So I would say I believe in instinct. I believe you have to listen to your gut, but at the same time, taking the leap to be an entrepreneur, you've got to silence that conscience inside of you that's like, I don't know if you should do it, bro. But I would say find value. If you really feel like you're not ready, seek out advice of people who have done it. Let them, like, you have to have capital. That's one thing. Yeah. And that's hard to come by early on in your career. So if you're gonna use a corporate experience to get some money to be able to launch your own thing successfully, do that. Learn what is good about the corporation that you can implement in your own business, and learn what not to do. Once you feel like you have those three things, I think just go for it. Just go for it. Yeah. What else do you have to learn at that point? I got the money. I know what I want to do. I know what I don't want to do. Let's go.
So when I'm seeking out those experts, right, what questions should I be asking them to help establish those benchmarks of go, no go?
Mm-hmm. Man, that's a really good question. I never really thought about that. You should have a very rock solid business plan. An idea is one thing. And there are tons of resources that will help veterans write the plan. And if you're talking to an expert and they're not recommending taking what your idea is and putting it out, okay, here's my personnel strategy, here's my marketing strategy, here's, my HR, my accountability, here's my cash flow, and putting all of that into a 9 to 10 document so you have a foundation to go back to. Because, like we talked about a little bit earlier, there's going to be times even in the entrepreneur's life when where you started and where you are two completely different things. And you need to take some assessment and say, okay, I need to get back to what I originally got into this thing to do. I mean, I read my business plan from 6 or 7 months ago just recently, and I was like, yeah, that was, I set out with all the best intentions in the world to do exactly this process, and I'm not doing it. Reasons, unknown. But yeah, and that's, I think, the difference between having a great idea and being a good business person is the execution piece of it. And the business plan has always helped me, with that, to put my thoughts down on paper. So start with a business plan and then have a good mentor, find somebody who's successful in the space that you want to be in, and just, pick their brain all the time and say, I'm doing it this way. How would you do it? And then when they say how they would do it, don't be afraid to go, okay, I'm not going to do it that way. That's good, but I'm still going to do it my way, So this is just a number of different ways, to answer your question. But
that's the thing. And I think that there's a disconnect in military folk because we become so process oriented,
right,
that we think that there is a process, not many processes. And the frustration that I see with many veterans is they're banging their head against the wrong walls a lot of times because they don't have a mentor.
Yeah.
How do I go and approach this mentor who's probably very busy, right? Has probably been approached by tons of people who don't follow through on the shit they tell them to do. Yeah. How do I manage that relationship? How do I start it? And then how do I manage it?
The social media is such a great tool for us to be able to start that. So that's certainly one way to find somebody. And you're right. If you're looking at somebody like a Gary Vee who's got 5 million followers and you're going to like DM him and be like, hey bro, I need a mentor, it's probably not going to happen, but that doesn't mean that he can't mentor you without a personal relationship, so that's one way to get what you need from someone without having a one-on-one. But, you know, I would say the human interaction of having a good mentor is a very important thing. I try to call mine at least once a month and keep in touch, and those people sometimes they'll just come to you in a moment when you need them the most, and you're like, I didn't know that I needed you in my life, but here you are.
Yeah.
And it can change over time who that mentor is, but I feel like, you would especially appreciate this. You know how to snuff out bullshit. Like, that's your thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can, and I think the veteran population on the majority can say, this is a snake oil salesperson. I don't like you.
Yeah.
You're bad for whatever reason, because you're not genuine, you're not authentic, whatever it is. Look for somebody that is, because somebody who has that spirit is going to want to give and give and give. My mentor has a fantastic saying, and he said, a candle diminishes none of itself by lighting another unlit candle.
Yeah.
So, the point of it is take your fire, pass it on to somebody else, because now the world's a little bit brighter. You got two candles that are burning, and you didn't give anything of yourself away. So
that is very profound. And I think that it's very important to discuss some of the higher level philosophy behind why you make the decisions that you make. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a mentor, whether formal or informal, doesn't matter. And to me, I agree with you with the flame analogy. Who are the people that, aside from your mentor that you just mentioned, who are the people that gave you the flame? What are those resources?
Yeah. I will tell you, and my very first mentor was the first platoon sergeant that I had in the Marines. And I'm in Wilmington. He's lieutenant colonel now. And man, he put his arm around me more times than I deserved, and was like, you're an idiot PFC, you're an idiot Lance Corporal. Like, and what's funny? I don't know if you felt this way, but when you're a PFC and you're a Lance Corporal or whatever, and you're looking and you've got a sergeant, don't they just feel like giant of men? And they're 2 years older than you, max.
Yeah. No,
maybe.
They absolutely do.
Yeah. And you're like, but looking back on it now, you're like, I just can't believe that I just respected them so much. It's the way we're built, we're built to respect authority. But it's just funny to me. It's like, we're 2 years apart. Like, we could have gone to the same high school, but because you have, 3 rockers or 3 stripes on your chevrons, then, I feel like you're just whatever. But anyways, so he was my first mentor, and still to this day, I'll hit him up and just be like, sell it to me straight. And where am I going wrong on this? And I think there's guys that I was in the Marines with that I haven't heard from in years and years and years. And if they called me, I would pick up the phone and I would talk to them for as long as they needed talking to. So there are those people in your life, even if you don't have regular communication with them, And
as far as like the, call it the civilian side of the house, is there anybody like, whether it's an author or otherwise, that has really helped shape your mindset to get you to where you're at now?
Yeah, I'm an avid reader. I'm trying to think through sort of the Rolodex of books that have made me, I mentioned Gary Vee. I like him a lot because he just sells it like it is. And he had kind of a crummy story and a crummy upbringing. I will tell you one book that changed my life, and it's not a civilian who wrote it, but it's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. To your point, military were very processed and process oriented, and I like things to be linear. My brain.
Me too.
Yeah, my brain's just like, okay, 6 steps, I get it. Yep. But then when you really become a good practitioner of process is when you can take out step 3 because it's not, really relevant, and you can move it to step number 7 if necessary, or you delete it from the process altogether. Sort of like, I think process is like a bush that constantly needs trimming. But Jocko is a really good one because to anchor it in our conversation about being an entrepreneur, what he really did for me was to identify the things that I knew I was good at because of my military experience, that I could absolutely do in the business world without freaking out civilians or making them think that, I'm a motard. Obviously I'm not by my hair. I forgot more about the military than I remember. But that I could take those disciplines that are in me that I knew would make me successful. And he really spelled that out. And I think Jocko's a good one. I like him a lot. Yeah.
Jocko was definitely, when I was looking at the Zen veteran as a concept, when it was just an idea bouncing around in the back recesses of my subconsciousness, Jocko was one of the inspirations. So how does Jocko operate? And why is it so different? And he does. He blends that, in my opinion, that Navy SEAL mentality and packages it in such a way that it's accessible to regular people and doesn't freak them out.
Right.
But without watering down any of the content. And that's a skill that I think that he has. So you got Jocko, you got all the other informal mentors that are out there. Tell me about when you are making this decision to go entrepreneurial. One thing that I think gets put on the back burner is the family component of that, those internal conversations. What was that like for you and for your family?
I made the decision for my family. So mine actually got pretty easy because with where I was in my job, I was on the road all the time. And so, when I'd get home, I remember one week, dude, I was Atlanta, Toronto, California, Vancouver, Houston, and then back to Atlanta. It was all done in a 4 or 5 day run. So I'm gone for 5 days. I'm home for a weekend. And I wasn't home, like I'm jet lagged. I'm tired. I'm not participating in my kids' lives. My wife is pissed off at me because she's like, we need you. Like, you have 2 little girls. They need their dad. So for me now, it's better for me because I see them every night, tuck them in every night, get them ready for school every morning. But what I have the flexibility to do now that I didn't back then is to involve my family in our business. So my wife works here with me 3 days a week. I would say that's only for certain couples. But we've got it pretty good, I think. We fight and we bicker at each other and all that stuff, but it's all well intentioned because, she's as bought in about our success as I am. So, that's number one. But number two, we get our kids involved. If we're doing community events, and obviously we can't do any right now because everybody has to stay inside, but we have the girls there. And I think too, there's kind of 2 parts of that too. I want my family to be proud of me in what I do. Cause my dad's a retired Marine Corps colonel. He worked and worked and then went on to work for Lockheed. And to me, he's a giant of a man. And I respect all the sacrifices that he made for our family. And I want my girls to feel the same way about me. And I think involving them too also rubs off on them a good bit to say, dad works really hard. And we don't just give our girls stuff without them earning it. And that's a principle that they need to take into adulthood too, as well. So, I try not to separate the two. I try not to be like family, oil, work, water. Like, how can we put all that together in a way where I can still be professional? I can still service my clients' needs, but in a way that doesn't feel like, I'm dad. I'm going off to work, and the children. Like Mr. Banks.
Bring me my lunch pail.
Right. Like Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins, right? The bank is such a serious place. Children can't come in the bank. It's like, being a family man makes you more relatable to people.
I completely agree. One of the best things that happened in my career was getting married because it made me more relatable as a human being. A lot of people told me I was closed off, and something about a wedding ring made me more accessible. It's like, okay.
Who the hell knows, man?
Who knew?
Piece of gold.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I know you're a busy man and you got a lot going on. Before we wind up here, any last pieces of advice for, these professionally ambitious post 9/11 vets who are just feeling stuck in transition purgatory, whether it's they haven't found a job yet and they've been at it for a while, or they're in a job but they hate it. What do you wish that you knew getting out that you know now?
I wish I had acted on my earlier ideas and impulses.
Yeah.
You know, like
I knew.
sometimes you have that shower thought and you're like, this is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And you do nothing about it. You don't take the chance. And then a week later you see Snapchat and you're like, that was basically the idea I had, you know? And you kind of get stuck in that. I don't know how to execute on this. So I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm not an app developer. I don't know how to develop an app. So I don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, that would be, if I could go back and tell myself that, like, you know, whatever that first big idea that you have, dude, like try really, really hard and be okay with failing. I know this is cliche. I don't remember how many light bulbs Edison went through before, you know, he figured out the one, and he said, I just found out 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Those failures, if they even are failures.
Yeah. Which they aren't typically.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much to use your term. There's so much juice in learning what not to do and getting through the failure. But just what if that one idea is the one that pops, you know, and I just wish I went for it more often and earlier, you know?
I'm with you, brother. Send it. Well, Rob, this has been fantastic, brother. Thank you for joining me. Great show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thanks for having me, bud. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Spotlight Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to ask you who you think should be interviewed on the show. Who do you think is out there that's just absolutely crushing it that the veteran population needs to hear from? That's what we want to hear from you. Send us your suggestions to spotlight@thezenveteran.com. That's SPOTLIGHT @thezenveteran.com. Thanks again for listening.